Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Wicked Bee of the West YouTube channel. My name is Stephanie Diana Eubank, Dr. Stephanie Diana Eubank. I teach business administration over at Stan State, and I'm the owner operator of Wicked Bee of the West Consulting. So, when I was initially doing my doctoral dissertation, prior to COVID, there were only three recognized types of isolation that remote workers were experiencing as far as what was found in the practical and peer-reviewed research. Since 2020, the amount of research has doubled as far as both the peer-reviewed and the academic world looking at not just the leadership perspective, but what is called followership perspective, which are those in non-managerial roles. And as such, there have now been found eight different types of isolation that remote workers are dealing with. So I've decided to make a series of specific topics this coming few weeks or 8 weeks specifically on the different types of isolation that remote workers are dealing with. And again, the three major ones that have been researched prior to COVID were specifically social isolation, social, geographical, and professional isolation. So today we're going to talk about the first, social isolation. Now, as we now see remote work becoming more and more sought after by employees, a lot of companies are utilizing remote work to snatch subject matter experts or SMEs because it's a great way to be better able to afford these specialists. And we're seeing a lot of new changes for that, which we're going to get into in later videos. But again, focusing on social isolation, this has taken a whole new meaning in the modern workplace. We're no longer limited to the physical separation in the remote workplace. And this has created a interesting opportunity depending on how you look at it. See, for social isolation, we have to remember first and foremost, business is a social science. We often forget that it is a social science. And for many people who work, it's the primary social experience they have during their day. There's a reason traditionally people had large groupings of friends that were colleagues at their workplace. However, trends have changed that exponentially outside of remote work. So again, the social bonds have changed culturally within business anyway. But again, the physical isolation, if the person does not have the personality to really work with that and develop outside interests and hobbies, this can create a lot of negative effects for the worker and the company. So, modern social isolation includes both physical separation from your colleagues and the digital distance created by technology, which can be mediated with communication. And again, can also be exacerbated by a lack of communication. So, further research has found that one of the key ways to address social isolation has to come from both the side and perspective and hard work of those in leadership and those in the followership realm. So, for leaders to help address it, they have to strengthen team communications in the remote setting. I personally have always liked during COVID, as managers were becoming more aware of social isolation, would set up basically viewing parties for various TV shows that the team liked to watch, or celebrations for like Lunar New Year, and sending the team DoorDash gift cards or Instacart, whatever, to get whatever their favorite food is so that they could all sit and watch parades, etc. those are great ways for leaders to strengthen the ties within their team, which will help build morale and increase productivity. Another is to recognize employees fully and authentically, meaning that leaders have to actually spend time with their team, not just because they're wanting to check up on a particular project being done, but because they care and say, hey, I just wanted to check up on you. How are you doing? Is there anything that I can be doing to help you as far as uh, do you have any ideas on projects you want to start doing? Any additional trainings you want to do? What are your goals? And start to learn your team as people. Also, again, supporting their professional development and offering growth opportunities. Again, if you're only contacting your team because you're trying to check up on their work, you're ignoring the talent that you have on your team and the ability to build your team and yourself up as a leader. And building community rituals is a great way also that leaders can help strengthen their teams, such as creating digital social spaces and collaborative activities. Also, empowering through trust and autonomy. Again, making sure that you're giving your employees the ability to more or less allow for them to be able to do their work without being micromanaged. And not all managers are on board with this. Not all managers are on board with remote work and the change in the type of leadership. Remote work really calls for what is called why theory leadership, which is an empathetic attitude towards leadership, where the leader believes that everybody wants to find meaning in their work and wants to feel connected with their work, where X theory leadership believes people don't want to work anymore. And instead, people have to be forced to work. So again, not all leaders are down with Y theory leadership due to the fact that it's not necessarily the traditional concepts we normally praise in business. But this makes it so that to prevent social isolation, those in followership or employees need to first and foremost recognize when they are struggling with the isolation from working remote. Because again, not everybody has the personality for it and not everybody enjoys it. You definitely have an adaptation period if you haven't been working remotely as long as I have, which is 13 years now. This being said, there are steps that remote workers can do to help safeguard their own social well-being. And this includes initiating social interactions, such as reaching out to your teammates just to say hi, or to ask questions, even if you don't really have a question, you just have a theoretical question on something you're working on. Setting healthy boundaries. Overworking increases burnout and can also add to depression and feelings of isolation. Engaging in company activities and events, whether they're in person or remote, is another great way to foster belonging and help with that social isolation. And lastly, communicating your needs clearly. Speaking up about your workload, communication preferences, and your mental health can reduce misunderstandings and emotional detachment from your work. Now, especially with regards to communication practices, there was a recent study that found generationally, millennials tend to not like when their manager calls them because, again, we've dealt with major financial crises where managers were calling to tell us we were laid off. And if you're not a manager who calls just to check up on your team, this can create more anxiety, especially for that demographic. Gen Zers tend to also prefer instant messages versus calls, or a request for a video chat. Where those in the boomer and Gen Xers prefer a phone call or a face-to-face even if they're, working in the same building, or a video chat. So again, that is a study and a generalization within that study. But again, checking with your team on how they prefer to be communicated with, and as an employee yourself, expressing to leadership, hey, I don't like to be called right away. Can you like instant message me just to check up if I'm ready to talk or not? Um, just so that we can set up the communication in a way that works for you as the leader. That kind of mindfulness, both from the leadership and followership perspective, is a great way to not only help better connect with your teams, but also, again, show a healthy amount of leadership respect for your team. That's all I have for you today. Again, for the next 8 weeks, we're going to be discussing all the different types of isolation that remote workers deal with, and how both leaders and employees can work to protect themselves and their team so that they can increase productivity and increase morale overall. Again, that's all I have for you today. Remember, remote work, it's here to stay. If you like this content, please follow and subscribe. And please, again, like and share. It's caring. Take care, everybody.